I was standing at the stove basting the turkey when Jim barked from the couch, "Is it done yet, or what?" His voice cut through the football game like a slap. He was halfway through his second beer, socks on my coffee table, acting like he ran the place. My hands were shaking from exhaustion. I had been cooking since 7 that morning. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, stuffing, pies, all made from scratch. Lynette's mom, Gloria, was flipping through a magazine, not even pretending to help. That's when it hit me. I was the only one in the kitchen. No help, no thanks. Not even a damn "smells good." My name's Russell. I'm 37. I lived in Little Rock, Arkansas. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I turned off the oven and called everyone to the table. Nobody moved, not right away. I had to stand there like a waiter in my own house, calling out again. When they finally sat down, Jim didn't even wait for grace. He stabbed the turkey like it owed him money. Then, in front of everyone, he dropped his fork, leaned back and said, loud and clear, "You know what? You're a goddamn parasite. You don't belong here. I want you out by Sunday silence." Gloria looked down. Lynette blinked like she misheard. No one spoke. No one stopped him. I looked at Lynette. She didn't meet my eyes. I kept my voice calm. "Come again?" Jim smirked. "You heard me. This ain't your house. You don't do anything around here except take up space." I almost laughed. The plates in front of them, all me, the roof over their heads, me. The gas, electric, water, Wi-Fi. I paid it all. I even picked up Gloria's medical insurance after her COBRA ran out. I stood up slow. No yelling, no chair slamming. I wasn't giving them the show they wanted. Then Lynette, barely above a whisper, asked, "You'll still cover Mom's insurance for next month, right?" I stared at her. That was her concern. Not that her dad just kicked her husband out like a stray dog, but if I'd keep paying their bills. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded once. "Yeah, I'll be out by Sunday." I walked away from the table while the food was still steaming. As I headed to the bedroom, Jade, my stepdaughter, brushed past everyone, caught up to me, and put her hand on my arm. Just a second, just enough. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. I closed the door behind me and started packing. I zipped the last suitcase and sat on the edge of the bed, just breathing. The whole house was quiet except for the buzz of the hallway light and a distant laugh from the TV. They were back in the living room, acting like nothing happened. I opened the nightstand drawer to grab my passport and caught something weird under a stack of Lynette's nail files. A manila folder with J. Cartwright scribbled on the tab. Jim's last name. I never snooped in their stuff, but this wasn't their drawer. This was mine. I paid for the furniture, the mortgage, the light bulbs. Inside were 6 months of bank statements. The account was in Jim's name, but the address matched ours. And the balance? Just over $17,000, growing steadily. October alone had deposits totaling nearly $4,000. My hands went cold. I flipped back through the pages. Deposits, interest gains, all clean. No signs of hardship, no missed payments, no scrambling. Meanwhile, I'd been draining my savings. I had maybe $800 left across 2 accounts. I'd been skipping lunches, stretching gas money, selling my own tools. Then I saw it, a glossy brochure folded in thirds. Paradise Bay Boat Center. Inside, a circled photo of a white pontoon with blue trim. Handwritten in the margin, "Delivery, November 27th. Call Ray to confirm." That was 3 days from now. I leaned against the dresser and tried not to punch a hole through the drywall. They waited until I paid all the bills. Every last November charge was in. The insurance premiums, the propane refill, the car maintenance Gloria suddenly needed last week. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a planned eviction. A setup. The door creaked open. Jade stood there in pajama pants and an oversized hoodie, hair pulled up, eyes puffy. She closed the door behind her. I heard yelling earlier. I didn't answer right away. I was still holding the brochure like it might burn through my skin. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I finally looked at her. "Did you know?" She nodded, slow. "I heard them talking about it earlier this month. Dad said he'd wait until you covered the insurance and rent, then tell you to leave. Mom didn't argue. I clenched my jaw so hard it clicked. Why didn't you tell me?" Her face crumpled like she expected me to scream. Because they said if I warned you, I'd end up living with my real dad again. He's worse. She was shaking now, gripping the sleeves of her hoodie so tight her knuckles turned white. I sat down, exhaled hard, and motioned her over. She dropped next to me without a word. They told me Grandma was sick, I muttered. All those doctor visits. She leaned into me quietly. I'm really sorry, Russell. I didn't say anything back. My brain was sprinting. All the weird comments, the timing, Lynette's cold distance the past month. It was like realizing your whole house was wired to explode, and you'd been living there, blindfolded. I flipped through the statements again, my thumb dragging along the corner of each page, checking dates, names, totals. Don't tell them I told you, Jade said suddenly. Please. I won't, I said, but I need to get out before Sunday. She nodded. You good staying here? I don't have a choice. I looked at her, really looked at her, 14 years old and already learning how to survive in a house full of liars. I stood up and grabbed a legal pad from the closet shelf, started writing down everything, account numbers, bank names, the boat place, delivery dates. I snapped pictures with my phone, backed them up to the cloud. If they thought I was leaving empty-handed, they were dead wrong. Jade stood at the door. You're not going to tell Mom? Not yet. Are you going to get them in trouble? I stared at the folder. Eventually. She gave me a weak smile. Good. Then she slipped out of the room and closed the door behind her. I turned off the light and kept packing. I wasn't just leaving now. I was preparing for war. By sunrise Sunday, I had everything packed, all the stuff I paid for anyway. I left behind the couch, the TV, the dishes, anything they might try to fight me over. If it didn't have a receipt with my name on it, it stayed. The house was dead quiet. They'd left for church around 7:30, like clockwork. Jim never missed a chance to shake hands and play holy in front of people who didn't know him. I gave myself exactly 90 minutes. No music, no talking. Just the sound of boxes sliding on hardwood and tape tearing off the roll. I loaded the car like a surgeon. First the sealed plastic bins, then 2 boxes of receipts, then my tools and documents. I filled the trunk and half the back seat. Everything I owned now fit inside a 10-year-old Honda Accord. My old Civic, the backup I barely drove anymore, stayed behind in their driveway. The last thing I grabbed was my jacket from the coat rack. There was still a faint smell of turkey in the air, like the house itself didn't know yet that I was done. I locked the door behind me. By noon, I was passed out on a busted couch in Daryl's 1-bedroom apartment, still in my jeans and boots. When I woke up, Rufus was standing on my chest, their crackhead golden retriever with ADHD and no concept of personal space. He licked my face like we'd known each other for years. I didn't stop him. Daryl walked out of the kitchen holding a mug. Dog likes you. You're screwed now. I sat up slow. My back popped. Appreciate you letting me crash. Man, please. You think I was gonna let you sleep in that car after what they pulled? Kenny leaned in from the hallway, toothbrush hanging out his mouth. Rufus snores louder than your in-laws, though. Fair warning, I actually laughed. First time in days. I spent the next few hours cutting every tie I could think of. Called the utility companies. Removed my name from the electric, water, gas. Canceled autopay for everything linked to that address. Closed out the shared Amazon account. Changed every password I had. While I was on hold with the bank, Daryl sat next to me and asked, how bad is it, money-wise? 3 months ago, I had close to $10,000, I said. Now? Maybe enough for a security deposit and half a month of groceries. Kenny walked by again, shaking his head. That's next-level scumbag. You should have taken their TV just on principle, I smirked. Nah, let them sit in the dark when I shut off the power tomorrow. Daryl raised his mug. Petty and legal. My favorite combo. We sat there for a few minutes, not talking. Just Rufus chewing on a tennis ball between my feet. I scratched behind his ears, and for some reason, that dog leaned in like he'd been waiting for me all along. I didn't cry, but something inside me cracked a little. That night, I made a spreadsheet with every dollar they owed me. Bills, medical premiums, stolen electronics, everything. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but it felt good just writing it down. I slept on the couch again, Rufus curled up under my arm like some furry reminder that not everyone needed something from me. Monday morning, I woke up to 10 missed calls. Different numbers, different voicemails, all the same tone. Russell, what did you do? You walked out over one little argument? You can't just abandon family like that. I didn't recognize half the voices. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Old neighbors. My Aunt Carol left a 3-minute message about loyalty and responsibility like I was some runaway teenager. Jim was fast. He'd spun the story before I even got my first good night's sleep. Now I was the villain, the ungrateful son-in-law who'd stormed out and left them destitute. More texts rolled in. They're saying you left them with bills. Why didn't you think about Jade? Call your wife. Fix this. I put the phone face down and went back to work on my laptop, the only safe device I had left. Except by afternoon, that phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jade. They're telling everyone you hit Dad, she whispered. He's saying you threatened him. I rubbed my forehead. Of course he is. They're also saying you took money from Mom. I laughed out loud, sharp and bitter. Yeah, okay. But then her voice dropped even lower. There's something else. Mom pawned your laptop and that camera you bought last year. She said it was for bills, but my stomach turned. What pawn shop? I heard her on the phone with a place on Maple Avenue. She bragged about getting cash up front. That was it. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was theft. I opened the plastic bin with my receipts and pulled out the folder marked electronics. Serial numbers, purchase dates, everything. Jade, listen to me, I said. Don't tell them you told me this. Understand? Yeah, I'm sorry, Russell. Not your fault. Stay out of it. I hung up and immediately called the police department. The desk officer transferred me to property crimes. I gave them every detail. The serial numbers, the pawn shop, the address, even the receipt for the camera bag they probably tossed in with it. The officer asked, "Is this a domestic dispute?" "No," I said flatly. "It's theft." I paid for everything. I've got proof he told me to email the documents. I did it right there from Daryl's kitchen table, my hand steady even though my jaw wasn't. Kenny walked in halfway through. "You're filing a report?" "Yeah, they took my stuff." He sat down across from me, serious for once. "Good. Stop letting them get away with it." Daryl came in behind him, coffee mug in hand. "What's happening now?" "They're running a smear campaign," I said, "and apparently pawning my gear while they do it." He whistled low. "Man, that's cold." I finished the email and hit send. It's more than cold. It's criminal. The rest of the day I locked down every weak spot they could touch. Fraud alerts on my credit, new email passwords. Closed out the old joint account Lynette still had access to. Opened a brand new bank account with no shared ties. Each click felt like pulling a nail out of my own hand. But by evening, I'd built a wall between me and them. The phone kept buzzing with guilt trips. I let it. I was done explaining myself. I wasn't their provider anymore. I wasn't their scapegoat either. And now, I had proof. Kenny didn't waste time. That same night, he pulled a set of security cameras out of a box in his closet. "Bought these last year when my ex got weird," he said, unrolling wires. "Didn't need them then. You need them now." I helped him mount one over the front door and another in the hallway facing the stairwell. Motion alerts, night vision, whole setup. By the time we finished, Rufus was curled on the couch like a guard dog that only barked at pizza deliveries. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Bank alert, 5 failed login attempts. IP address, still tied to the old house. I stared at the screen, Jim or Gloria, maybe even Lynette, trying to break into my new account. Desperate or stupid, probably both. At 2:26, another alert. Password reset request denied. That's when I stopped breathing for a second. I'd already changed everything, security questions, PINs, two-factor. But now I knew they weren't done. Then, just after 3, came the pounding. Heavy fists on the apartment door. 3 hard hits. Then again, then again. I sat up straight. Kenny was already stepping into the hallway. Rufus barked loud and sharp, for once actually sounding like a threat. "Open this goddamn door, Russell!" Jim's voice, slurred, angry, and way too loud. "You think you can rob us and run? I want my shit back." I stayed calm, didn't flinch, just grabbed my phone, hit record, and dialed building security. Kenny spoke through the door. "You need to leave, man. This is private property." "I don't give a damn. He stole from my family. I kept recording." "What exactly did I steal, Jim?" I said, loud enough for the mic to catch. "I'll press charges, you piece of trash. I'll burn your life down." The hallway lights kicked on. Building security, older guy named Vince, showed up 2 minutes later with his radio already in hand. "Sir, you need to leave the premises," he said firmly. Jim shoved his arm toward the doorframe. "This bastard owes us thousands." Vince pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the cops." I opened the door just enough to show my face. Calm, steady, focused. "He tried to hack my bank account. I've got alerts and screenshots. He's been spreading false claims. I also have a police report on file for stolen property." Jim lunged, Vince blocked him, and within another 10 minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up outside. They cuffed Jim right in the hallway, shirt untucked, face red, still yelling. "This ain't over, Russell. You'll pay for this. You ruined our family." I didn't answer. I just handed one of the officers the folder I'd prepared. Receipts, bank statements, photos, and my statement from earlier in the week. The officer flipped through it, gave me a nod. "You've done everything by the book. If he contacts you again, file for a protective order." "I'm already thinking about it," I said. Kenny locked the door once they left. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, sitting down. "But I think I'm going to press charges." Daryl wandered out, rubbing his eyes. "What the hell did I miss?" "Jim showed up drunk, screaming about stolen crap," Kenny said. "Cops hauled him out." Daryl looked at me. "You good?" "Not great," I said, "but I'm not scared anymore." That night, I couldn't sleep, not from fear, just thinking. Thinking about how far they were willing to go. The lies, the theft, the threats. They didn't just want me out. They wanted to bury me. Fine. They just handed me every reason I needed to make it legal. 3 days later, I stood on their front porch with a Little Rock PD officer beside me, clipboard in hand, badge on full display. Same porch I once power washed for Jim's birthday. Same door I replaced after it warped in the summer heat. I didn't knock. The officer did. 3 firm knocks. Gloria opened it, saw me, and her whole face tightened. "This is harassment." "No, ma'am," the officer said calmly. "Mr. Cartwright is here to retrieve his personal property per the report filed Monday. We're here to avoid conflict, not create one." Gloria stepped halfway into the doorway. "Everything in this house belongs to the family. He abandoned us. He doesn't get to come back now and play victim." I pulled a folder from my bag and handed it over. Receipts for every item on my retrieval list, dated, signed, and tied to my card, including the refrigerator you claim is yours, she scoffed. "You're really taking the fridge?" "Damn right I am." The officer looked at her. "We're not here to debate. If he's got proof of ownership, you need to step aside." She moved, but not without muttering something under her breath about selfishness and betrayal. I walked straight to the garage and started loading the boxes I'd labeled and left behind. My camping gear, power tools, a stack of winter clothes. A desk I assembled by myself while Jim watched football last year and called me Mr. by Martha Stewart. 15 minutes in, I carried the last bin to the curb and popped the trunk. The officer stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching everything. That's when I heard it, the familiar rattle of my old Civic pulling into the driveway. The backup car, the one I'd almost sold 6 months ago but kept as a spare. Jim stepped out like he was walking into a courtroom he already owned, keys in hand, sunglasses on. My heart dropped. I'd forgotten I ever gave them the spare key. He looked at the officer, then at me. "Didn't expect to see you again this soon. Thought maybe you'd crawl back when the couch got too hard." I ignored him, walked up to the car and pointed at the plates. "That vehicle is registered to me, title's clean, and I've got it in my glove box." "What the hell are you doing driving it?" He shrugged. "After everything we've done for you, I figured it was the least we were owed." The officer stepped forward. "Sir, I'm going to need you to hand over those keys." Right now, Jim smirked, then laughed. "You serious?" "Very. Unless you'd like to be charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. And considering your arrest 3 nights ago, I'd suggest you cooperate." There was a pause. Not long, but long enough to make my chest tight. Jim tossed the keys toward me. "You're unbelievable." I caught them, walked straight to the car, popped the trunk, and started unloading the last of my things. Jumper cables, the tool kit, old records I'd stashed under the floor mat. Gloria came outside, arms crossed, standing behind the officer. "This is disgusting. You're robbing us in broad daylight." I didn't look at her. "No, I'm taking back what's mine." I loaded the final box into the Accord, shut the trunk, and turned to the officer. "That's everything." He nodded. "You good to drive?" "Yeah." Jim stood with his arms spread like he still didn't get it. "After everything we gave you..." "You didn't give me anything," I cut in. "I paid for it all. And now I'm done." I got in the car, started the engine, and didn't look back as I pulled away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the bird through the mirror like some movie ending. But inside, it felt like I'd just crawled out of a burning house, covered in ash, dragging whatever pieces I could salvage behind me. I didn't know where this was all headed, but for the first time, I knew where they ended. I was halfway through unloading the car back at Daryl's when my phone buzzed. It was Jade, just one line. "They're blaming me now." I called her right away. She answered in a whisper. "They think I told you about the laptop. About the bank stuff." I stepped around to the trunk and leaned against it. "Did they say it to your face?" "Mom did. She said, I sided with a thief." "Dad hasn't looked at me since yesterday." I bit down hard. I wanted to go back there and rip into both of them, but I knew that wouldn't help her. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "You told the truth." "That scares people like them." She sniffed. "I feel like I made it worse." "You didn't." I was already gone. This was already burning. There was silence on the line. I could hear voices in the background. "Listen," I said. "Stay out of their fights. Don't defend me to them. Don't argue. Just survive. You hear me?" "Yeah." "And Jade, you're stronger than all of them combined." Her voice broke when she said, "Thanks," and then she hung up. 3 days after, I checked the mailbox and found another letter shoved between junk ads and a utility bill. No return address, just my name written in Gloria's handwriting, crooked and too hard like she stabbed the pen. Inside was a folded sheet of lined paper and a receipt for $300 from a pawn shop. The note said, "You owe us this for the things you left behind. Pay up and drop the nonsense." No signature, no apology, just nerve. I snapped a photo of the letter and receipt, then dropped the originals in my evidence folder. They were still treating this like a messy breakup, like I'd get over it and come crawling back. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number again. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. 4th time, I picked up. "Hello? Russell, it's your mother-in-law." Of course it was. "I wanted to talk." Calmly, she said. "We've had time to think." I said nothing. "If you drop the theft report, we'll consider letting you move back in. Not as things were, but with rules, boundaries. We'd even give you your own room." I let the silence stretch. Let her get uncomfortable. "We're trying to offer peace, Russell," she added, voice tightening. Still, I said nothing. Then her tone flipped like a switchblade. "If you don't want to come home, that's your decision. But I will be speaking to the rest of the family, telling them the truth about your behavior, your anger, the way you twist things, about how you've always struggled mentally. I'm sure that'll interest a few people." There it was. The threat. I stood at the kitchen counter, staring at the wall, letting the words sit. I almost laughed. "I've got proof," I said finally. She paused. "Excuse me?" "Proof of everything. The insurance fraud, the fake medical charges, the texts, the recorded calls, the pawn shop slips with your name on the drop-off form. If you want to test how much I've documented, be my guest." The silence on her end stretched longer than mine had. I leaned on the counter. "You wanted me quiet. Wanted me working, paying, disappearing. Now you're realizing I don't owe you shit, and you're panicking." "No one's panicking," she snapped. "Then why are you offering me my own room like a teenager grounded for the weekend?" Nothing, just static and breath. "Thought so," I said, and hung up. I didn't shake, didn't pace, just grabbed my laptop and opened the folder I'd been building, labeled Small Claims, Organized Documents. Time-stamped emails, labeled screenshots, printed bank transfers, receipts, police reports. I separated everything into folders by date and topic, By midnight, it was all backed up twice. They thought I'd roll over. They thought I'd feel guilty. They didn't think I'd keep receipts. Now I had all of them, right where they never thought I'd be, in control. 3 months later, my apartment didn't feel temporary anymore. It was quiet, clean. The bills were in my name, paid early. I stocked my own fridge. I knew what was in my bank account down to the dollar. No surprises, no guilt. I woke up on Thanksgiving to the smell of sausage and eggs. Daryl cooking like it was a damn brunch special. Kenny was already halfway through a bottle of orange juice, no glass in sight. Rufus hopping around like it was his birthday. "Where's the turkey?" I asked. "We're doing waffles," Daryl said. "Turkey's a trauma food now." Jade showed up around noon, a pie in each hand, scarf blowing in the wind. She looked taller, more sure of herself. She let Rufus knock her over without blinking. We all sat on the floor, plates on our laps, the game on low in the background. No yelling, no cold shoulders. Just 4 people and a dog figuring it out. At one point, Kenny raised his soda can. To chosen family, we clinked. Later that night, after the guys passed out on the couch and Rufus buried himself under a blanket like a toddler, Jade and I sat on the balcony with mugs of tea. "They're still struggling," she said quietly. "Eviction notice went up at Ben's place last week. They're blaming you for everything." I nodded once, didn't flinch. "They said I'm brainwashed," she added, "that you manipulated me." "You okay?" I asked. She looked out at the parking lot. "Yeah, I know the truth." We sat in silence for a minute. Leaves rattled down the street, the wind sharper now that November was almost done. "I ever ask you to hate them?" I asked. "No." "Tell you not to talk to them?" "No." I took a slow breath. "Do you think someday I could have some kind of contact again? Or is cutting people off forever the only way?" She shrugged. "I think boundaries aren't forever, but they're necessary." That sat heavy. And right. She stood up, patted my shoulder. "Happy Thanksgiving, Russell." "Happy Thanksgiving, Jade." I stayed out there a few more minutes after she went in. My apartment was nothing fancy, but every square inch was mine. Every quiet second was mine. No shame, no scorekeeping, no tightrope walk of don't upset anyone. Just a life I could actually breathe in. And in this space, chosen, protected, and wholly mine, I finally felt free.